Very good. So Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to start the third perek. A fantastic perek. Very exciting perek.
It's funny. I've been looking forward to this part of it because you see it and it's visually interesting also.
So just to answer your question, okay, regarding the times that Shlomo HaMelech wrote his. So we find a big machloket in the Midrash.
Okay.
On one end, the Chachamim teach us that Shlomo HaMelech wrote Shir HaShirim when he was young, Mishlei when he was an adult,
okay,
and Kohelet at the end of his life. Okay. However, another Midrash in Kohelet says that when did Shlomo write Kohelet? When he was Makhil Kehilot, when he brought Kahal together. Like it says, Vayakhel Shlomo, Vayakhel et Am. He gathered the people, and when was that? It was at the time of the Chanukah Habayit. And when did he build the Beit HaMikdash? When the Beit HaMikdash was finished? When he was 23 years old. Okay, that's when he did the inauguration of the Beit HaMikdash. Now, when did he have Rehoboam his son? At 11 years old. He was king at 12. At 11 already he had Rehoboam his son. So obviously he was very advanced. Okay, with his age. And we know that he passed at 52, right? So if you put things in perspective, that, basically if at 11 he already had a child, that means, and it wasn't his first child, okay? So it seems that he already had wives at the age of 8.
How could that be?
No, well, that's Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech is Shlomo HaMelech. How can that was Shlomo. That was Shlomo. Okay, these are facts. So if that means that it's 50% earlier than the regular time, right? Because when Shmona Esrei LaChuppah, at 18 you get married. So that means that he was, in terms of evolution, he was 50% faster than the normal time, which means that when he's 100, when he's 50, it's like he was 100.
So then that there is a hole in the argument of teaching your son after the age of 50 because it would really be 25 for him.
Well, no, it goes back to the timing. It goes back to the timing, right? Time is time. It's just the evolution compared to time changes.
Okay.
Okay, but the whole Rehoboam parasha, we're going to get to it again.
Okay.
Going back to your question.
Yes.
Okay. So, or he wrote Kohelet when he was 23 years old, or he wrote Kohelet at the end of his life.
Okay, so either 23 or somewhere in the late 40s, early 50s.
That's right.
Okay, so then here was my follow-up question. My follow-up question to that is, actually, it only applies if it was the 23, right? If he was 23 and he's writing all of these things,
what was left?
Then you would have to imagine that he would have the wisdom to be able to be the father that he should have been, right, to Rehoboam, right? At 23, he had another almost 30 years to live and to teach his son, right, with this wisdom. At the end of his life, okay, maybe there wasn't enough time. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Very good question. That will have to go back to the relationship Shlomo, Rehoboam, and Yerovam ben Nevat. Okay? Because the seizure of Am Israel, the kingdom of Am Israel, happens with Rehoboam. It was united, and then when Shlomo dies, okay, Rehoboam takes over, and then there's chaos in Israel because of the taxes. And then Yerovam ben Nevat, who was an enemy of Shlomo, who tried to do a coup against Shlomo. And he exiled in Egypt, comes back. And that's where the seizure between the two kingdoms in Israel of Yehuda and Israel will be formed.
Okay. Which book of Navi is
Shoftim.
Shoftim?
Melachim.
Melachim. Melachim Aleph or Bet?
Aleph.
Okay. Because that's probably a good thing to do.
Starts with the late days of David and the whole history of
it's probably worthwhile just studying the context of the story at the same time that we're doing this, because it may help, the thinking about all these things.
That's I like that idea.
On our own time. We're taking plenty of time from the Rav. We can read it.
Let's start Perek Gimel.
Let's go.
Okay, so in the third Perek, there is an introduction of the relationship of the relationship or the optics a person has to have of time. Until now, we've been discussing the interaction between man and his efforts, man and himself, right? How do you relate with yourself? That's what has been discussed until now. An introspection, an understanding. How do you balance spirituality versus instinct and animalistic inclinations? To finally understand the outcome of your efforts when you are connected to your soul and your true essence versus everything else. Now, Shlomo HaMelech starts to bring a new factor, which is called time. The factor of time is a factor that has a tremendous impact on a person when the person is reactional. Because time allows interaction between a person and situations. If there was no time, there would be no correlation between a situation and man. The only reason why situations happen is because there is a dimension that is called time, a vector that is called time. Now, if we go back to the concept of time, we see that there is two dimensions of time. One dimension of time is the time that was brought to creation at the time of Maaseh Bereshit.
Which is a physical...
Yes, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz ve'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu. First day, second day, Thursday, third, fourth, fifth, sixth day. The seventh day, nothing is created, right? Nothing happens. It's Shabbat. So why is it a day? We don't have a day before the first day. There was nothing also. So on the seventh day, there's also nothing. So why is it considered a day? Okay? So the reason why the seventh day is because by Shabbat, he rested. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought the concept of resting as also an action. It's proactivity. To rest is a proactive effort. Okay? And that is the Shabbat. Now, we're not going to go into what Shabbat brings out and how this, like the Zohar says, that all the beracha of the week is in the Shabbat, and everything that your entire potential is inside the Shabbat. That's a different shiur. But this is, if you want, time. Okay? And this time has in it a linear effect, right? Day after day. So it's time becomes. But the impact of God on time is circular. Meaning whatever happens in time, in a year, when it's an interaction of God with creation, that time comes every year. That influence will come again and again and again. For example, we spoke about Pesach last night in our shiur, right? The redemption of Egypt, Yetziat Mitzrayim, happened 3,000 plus years ago. Emet. But every year on the same date, there is a redemption that's happening. HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with the world the same way. Every time there is an interaction of God with the world, it impacts the time, so that when that time comes again, when that period comes again, the interaction of God regenerates itself, rejuvenates itself, and reinteracts with creation. Okay? So it's very, very important to understand that we have the linear time, and then we have the interaction of God with time, that in itself is circular. Clear? Very good.
Right.
All this is until Matan Torah. All this is until we got out of Egypt. Once we get out of Egypt, the first mitzvah that the Torah that we get as a people is HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. Chodesh Hu Lachem Lechodshei Hashana. This month is for you Rosh Chodashim. The head of the month, meaning the beginning of the month. A new dimension of time within time. So there is the time that is allowing the evolution of creation. You have the impact of God in time. Okay? And then you have another dimension of time, which is the time of Am Yisrael. The time of Am Yisrael is a time that is completely independent from the linear time.
Rob, it's almost like there's two times. It's above the sun and below the sun.
Exactly. Bravo. Exactly. So we can accomplish, if we live in the ecosystem of the time of Am Yisrael, things you can never actually accomplish if you belong to the linear time. You can tap in powers. You can create relationships with God, with your neshama, with malachim, in the ecosystem of time that God has given us. Something you can never ever do if you were in the regular linear dimension of time. Okay? Zman comes from the word hazmana, invitation. In Hebrew, hazmana means an invitation. Zeman is the word used for time. Time is an invitation to life. When you have time, this is God inviting you to create, to exist, to impact. Okay? Chodesh, the month, which means the month, comes from the word hadash, new. HaChodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim. Okay? You can create, you can bring to life things that are never been brought to the creation before. But in order to be able to do that, you need to be able to be in that ecosystem that's called HaChodesh hazeh lachem. It is your time. So we have an invitation to exist, but we also have the opportunity to create. Exist comes from a collaboration of two Latin words, extra, iste, exteriorize your essence. That's what it means. That's the definition of existing. Extra, iste, exteriorize your essence. Two Latin words, meaning bring out your potential. When you bring out your potential, you don't create. You just bring to life something that's already alive. It's just hidden. This is the linear time. HaChodesh hazeh lachem, when you're part of the Chodesh, when you're part of the ecosystem of the Torah, you create. It's become milashon hidush, from the word hidush. Is no longer bringing out a potential. It's creating something that never existed before.
Interesting.
So it's two complete different systems. We tend to live in the reactional world, in the linear world, in the dimension of the linear time, which is bring out your potential. So situation, poke you, and you react. And slowly, slowly, you reveal who you are. Great, fantastic. But we have a much powerful impact on creation, which is, again, going back to above the sun, which is the neshama, which is the life that allows you to create things that you could never get. And it is also called in the Chachmei Kabbalah, Ibur HaNeshamot. You bring to life a new neshama. You create a new potential. It's like you graduate your potential. It's finished? No, it's not finished. You tap into a new neshama, a new soul, and then you have a brand new potential. You graduate that potential, you create a new neshama, a new potential. And that's how Rabbi Chaim Vital explains, you get to your Moshe Rabbeinu. You get to the Moshe Rabbeinu not because Moshe lives within you, but it's a potential that you can get to. And every one of us have a pipeline, a connection to our own Moshe Rabbeinu. Good? So if you live in the Ma'arechet, in the system of time, that is the system of time of Am Yisrael, which is fully circular, okay? It emulates perfectly Hashem's interaction with creation. Where if you live in a linear time dimension, then it's very hard to understand how HaKadosh Baruch Hu's influence can be circular. You understand what I'm saying? We basically never go, the time is not something that pushes you further from the point of origin. The Goyim believe that. That's why the further you are from perfection. But if you're able to connect to that perfection, then you're always in touch with perfection. You're always in touch with your source. So there's no real good reason to feel that you, unless you choose to live in that linear dimension. Good?
Yeah.
All right. That's an introduction. All right.
Big introduction.
Now we can start.
Rob, before you start, you said before you start, you said you tap into a new soul. Basically, it's still your existing soul. It's just a different level of what you're tapping into of it, right?
Yes, but with a complete different new capacities.
But the current neshama I currently have in with me has those potentials, but I just didn't unlock them.
No. There is the potential, and once you've reached your potential, you tap into a complete different dimension with complete new different dimensions. It's true. It's that neshama that now sits on a complete different.
So it's you complete.
It's like gears in a car.
Level, then you're going up, and it's playing on a new level.
Correct.
It's like gears in a car: first gear, second gear, third gear.
Yes.
Okay, let's start. Lakol zeman, to everything there is time. To everything there is time. So, what does it mean? It means everything, everyone, everything has its time. Everybody and everything is under the influence of time. Ve'et lechol hefetz tahat hashamayim. Everything has its own moment under the sun. Meaning, if to everything there is a time and everything has a moment, it means that everything is under the influence of time and the control of time. Because everything exists within the ecosystem of time and is bounded to time. And all this is true under the sun. And not above the sun.
Because Hashem doesn't play in a physical world, or
Because what? No, you can defeat laws of time if you don't, if you're able to live above. If you live with your neshama, you can create things that and do things that are logically impossible to understand if you were to evaluate what people do with their time.
Like what?
For example, Shlomo HaMelech, how can we understand and we grasp that in 52 years he accomplished what he accomplished?
right?
What about an hour time? What can we do in an hour?
The same thing. You see people that, listen, how can Rav Chaim Kanievsky learn so much? He's very weak, he's very tired, but he learns more than anybody else on this planet.
Right.
He defeats any logic of time.
But if somebody's, I have a problem. If somebody's on that level where they're playing above the sun, why would they want to be here?
Again, we're going back to the answer of the Arizal. Your problem is the problem of the Rambam. That's what the Rambam says. And the answer of the Arizal is that every minute you're here, you're growing. So you don't want to leave.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Good?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So here there is introduction of two facets of the concept of time. There is time as it is, as a vector, and then you have the moment. The moment is your interaction with time. If you don't interact, then time is time, right? You cannot stop the time. But you can impact time with your interaction and proactivity. Good?
Mm-hmm.
So when we refer to Zaman, it's an invitation to exist. That doesn't mean you've existed yet. It's an invitation to exist. When you talk about Et, we're talking about an impact, an interaction between you and creation and time. It's a point of connection between the three dimensions, space, you, and time. When these three dimensions connect together, cross each other, it's called Et.
Et is now?
Et is a moment. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. עת ללדת ועת למות. There's a time or a moment when you were born and a moment where there's death. So obviously Shlomo HaMelech doesn't need to be Kohelet to teach us that a person is born and a person dies. There is a moment for creation, meaning creation does not just happen. Creation is part of the moment. It's a moment in the same way that a person, when a person dies, it's also a moment. There is a point of time. There's a time where the person dies. But the death is a moment. Just like birth is a moment. And here, Shlomo HaMelech brings depth into the introduction of life and the introduction of death. What he wants to say is that nothing happens suddenly. There is no birth. Somebody is not born suddenly, and a person doesn't die suddenly. Even if we're talking about a car accident and the person dies, it's not. It had the moment, the time was sudden, but the moment wasn't sudden. Here, Shlomo HaMelech opens our eyes to realize that if we are in tune with the interaction people have with their time, a person can actually pick up on the upcoming birth or lo alenu, the upcoming death. And we go back to those chachamim, those tzaddikim that would see someone and say this person is going to die. How do you know? He's alive right now. He's going to die. How do you know? Because the person see that individual is in a moment of death. Or you can see a lady that never had kids and say, oh, in 9 months you're gonna have a baby. How do you see? How do you know? I'm not pregnant. Because the person is now in a moment of birth. It's an energetic, a mazal, a bracha, depending on how you relate to creation, that puts you into that dynamic that's called the moment. This same concept applies not only for the physical birth or the physical death, but to an emotional birth, to a spiritual birth, to a business that is born, to an opportunity that is born. The opportunity can be generating life, creation, production, or the end of something. Death, the end of an era, the end of a relationship, the end of a partnership, the end of a business. Moments.
Can we pause for 1 second? I'm sorry to interrupt you. You said if we are in tune with the interaction, can you define what that interaction is?
If you're into, yes, meaning, the more your receptors, your spiritual receptors, the more the receptors of your neshama are fine-tuned, and the more you start visualizing intellectually the interaction you have with time, visualizing intellectually the interaction others around you have with their time, or the generation and its time. So we've heard Gedolei Olam, big Chachamim, that have foreseen moments of beracha and moments of distress. So, for example, the moment of what we're going through right now, of this COVID, right? Of Corona, this moment, if we had the proper goggles, we would be seeing that there's a moment of distress in creation. Now, this moment didn't start the day it started hitting the United States. It started when this
Vial. The vial.
Yes, was born and went out of control. The people that are in tune would have felt that there is something coming. And this thing is coming, and it will be a moment, right, of death, an act of destruction, an act of end that leads to an end for a lot of things. But the same way there's an end, there's also a beginning. So right now they're not seeing what's happening. They're seeing already the next act. What is the next moment? This is Chacham Gadol Min Navi. A Chacham, somebody that lives with his Chokhmah, with his wisdom, somebody that absorbs his wisdom, that implements his wisdom, has the ability to tap into those interactions, those moments, those itim.
Can I ask you a philosophical question about that?
Yeah.
If a chacham or somebody is blessed with that kind of energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's a very dangerous thing to say out loud or to say to somebody, because at the end of the day, you may feel it, but you may not know that it's right or it's wrong, right? So
Correct.
what kind of responsibility comes with that kind of, preemptive energy?
This is why most of people that talk, they don't know. The people that know don't talk.
Mm-hmm. That was my feeling. Because you hear so many stories of people who, tell you emphatically, great chachamim who tell you emphatically something is going to happen or something is not going to happen, only for it to unfold the other way. And we know they're not prophets, but there must be, that tells you that there must be some great level of responsibility that comes with that premonition.
Correct. Now, this comes. Yes, that's it.
Okay, we can leave it there if you want.
Et lata'at, there are time to plant, and there is time again la'akor natua, to uproot. Okay, so there's a time where we plant, and there's a time to uproot the planted. Meaning, when you plant something, you know that you've invested an effort in something that you might never see its result. You plant a tree today, you know that for 5 years you cannot touch the fruits. But you don't know where you'll be in 5 years.
What do you mean, like physically? Like if you're going to be by the tree?
Yeah, physically,
right.
Physically. You start building a house. Do you know if you're going to enter that house? Look at Papa, Alav Shalom. He built probably one of the nicest houses in Brooklyn, right? And people kept on talking about this house and beautiful, the block and the this and the that and the this and the that. Khalas. He will never
Did you ever hear the story of his Jersey home?
No.
Oh my God. It took him 3 or 4 years to build that home. And they were a couple of weeks away from moving in, and it burnt down, and they had to rebuild it. He was in the car. I'll tell you just quickly, because, obvious expression. He was in the car with my grandmother, and they saw the house on fire, and he said, "Okay, come on, let's go." And she goes, what do you mean? She goes, "All right, we'll rebuild it. What's the difference? We weren't meant to move in. That's it." And he left. Went back to Brooklyn, called the decorator. He says, "Just do it again." Like it was like nothing.
Yeah, that shows the inattachment to materialism.
Zero. And by the way, he built it to perfection, but when it was gone, he didn't care.
Yeah. Gadlut. Liot gadol mamash. Gadol mamash. So that's what. There's moment where you plant. There's moment where you cannot be impatient. There's moment where you cannot expect any immediate results. Where you plant something and you know that nothing's going to come out of it, but you're planting, you're toiling, you're working the land. There's moments where you put a lot of efforts, but nothing comes out of it.
It's like a business deal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or relationship. You build a relationship. You don't know what. You don't know. You have no idea. But you build this relationship. What's going to come out? Who knows? You work a business. You work an opportunity. You work. Maybe nothing's going to come out of this one. But in a year, 2 years, 3 years, because things went so well and you were so honorable and you were so faithful, the guy's going to remember, wow, this guy, he was impressive. Let me pick up the phone and boom, there's a deal that happens.
So is that like what you were saying before, where it's like a bigger thing, just a bigger picture of...
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So that's the et lata'at. Ve'et la'akor natua. But there's also a time where you have to uproot the rooted. What does that mean? There's times where we have to cut, even though we have something we eat from. You have a tree. The tree is making fruits for a long time, and you can benefit from that. But it's rotten. It's poisoning the other trees. So there's times where it's painful, but you have to cut a relationship. You have to cut sources of benefits. This is probably one of the most difficult times when a person benefits from something and it's keeping him alive, but he knows that on a larger scale it's poisoning and destroying everything else. So he has to find the courage and the leap of faith to cut that tree, to stop benefiting from whatever fruits he's benefiting from, whatever benefits he's getting, in order to stop the contamination and save the future growth. Very, very painful lesson and very painful moments, but moments we must face. And this Rashi reflects these et lata'at ve'et la'akor natua to people, to nations. HaKadosh Baruch Hu plants nations and brings them, but when they become destroyful, they become poisoning, he wipes them out. I heard from my rabbi, Rav Moshe Shapira, many times he told us a story of the Chafetz Chaim and the Admur of Gur. At the time, every year or twice a year, the chief rabbis or the biggest rabbis of Europe would get together to discuss the challenges the Jewish communities faced in Europe, Eastern Europe. And it was mamash the birth of communism in Europe, in Russia. And the Chafetz Chaim asked the Imre Emet, the Admur of Gur, to collaborate with him in order to go and fight publicly communism. And for whatever reason, it ended up never happening. And the Chafetz Chaim all his life suffered and was in pain from this initiative that never took place. So he said, but one day, the same way HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Et Latat, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought to life communism, Et La'akor Natua, he will be oikerit, he will uproot it completely, and he will disappear. And we saw it. 70 years of communism, uprooted, disappeared, unexistent, uninfluential, finished, garnished, nothing. So Rashi comes and says that the interaction of it's more of an appeasing perspective of our learning of that concept. Rashi says HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings nations against us. He rises nations that can takes it away and as if it never existed. Nazism, Imach Shemam, right? The Nazis came from out of nowhere. They came to life and then they vanished completely. So Shlomo HaMelech tells us, as a nation, you should know that when there is something that is born, something that is planted, it will be uprooted. He is reflecting to the plantation of Rome that he planted himself indirectly. We spoke about it on the day of his wedding with the daughter of Paro, of Melech, of the king of Egypt, right? The day of the inauguration of the Beit HaMikdash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu planted Rome. Come Shlomo HaMelech, the same way it's planted, it will be uprooted. One day will come and it will all vanish. We don't know when. It can take 70 years, it can take 200 years, it can take 2,000 years. We don't know. But there's moments also of uprooting. Ayet laharog. There are times where you have to kill. Rashi reflects what? To the 7 people of that Am Israel had to fight when they went into Israel. There are times where there's no mercy. There are times where you have to really kill. Again, on a personal level, kill a relationship, kill an opportunity, kill a dynamic. The etirpo. But there are times where you have to cure. Cure is painful. Cure takes a long time. Cure takes a lot of resources. Etifrots, there are times of destruction. The etlivnot, and there are times of construction. If you pay attention, the first pasuk, he addresses versus death, planting versus uprooting. So positive versus negative. The second pasuk
Negative, positive, yeah.
is the opposite. There is a shift in the focus that Shlomo HaMelech is making. When we talk about those moments of birth and those moments of plantation, the same way the birth and the plantation takes a very long time. You don't have any benefit. The moment of the birth starts, but ends 9 months later. Might end 9 months later, might never happen. This is the birth. Versus death and uprooting, that is a moment also, but in time is sudden, is specific. Right? The death in time, the moment is long, but the time of death is very specific. So it's a relationship between a factual moment, something that happened that strikes, versus its time. Uprooting, you uproot right away, versus the time it took to rotten, to poison, to get infected. However, when we start talking about time to kill, time to cure, to break, to build, all of these, okay, all to eradicate, all of these does not happen in a spark moment. These are continuous. This is more of a larger scale of time, in time.
It almost feels like it's like 2 points on a circle that are kind of on opposite ends of the circle, and they're just kind of going around and getting to the same place, but on the opposite end.
Yes. But I think yes. But that's for the first pasuk. That you can say for the first pasuk. For the second pasuk, and we're going to see it's not only the second. We're going to see that's it. He took a shift. Here, Shlomo HaMelech wants to say that in a big picture, the outlook of time, okay, is fundamentally based on an investment versus the end of the investment. The planting, you invest. The birth, you invest, versus the end of it. That's the cycle. But when you start zooming in and focusing on your interaction, on all the hurdles, on all the hiccups, on all the opportunities, you have to be ready first for the negativity react or to anticipate positive. Your outlook should always be first from, okay, what is the damage? You do something, okay, how do I get out of it? I do a deal. How do I get out of that deal? I do an investment. How do I get out of it if there's a problem? When people come to me to do partnerships, the first agreement I have is how do we separate? How do you guys, okay, you guys want to be partners today, how do you guys separate if it doesn't go well?
Wow.
Only then can you start seeing the positive. Why? Because naturally, people fool themselves that everything's going to be good. Everything's going to be is going to be nice. It's going to be, but it can only actually be good. The act of the good, the time, the moment of good can only come to fruition and realization if you anticipate and you understand the dark side of it also, and you're prepared for it. I have a saying that as long as people think that life is easy, life is difficult. But when people understand that life is difficult, life becomes easy. That's mine, huh? By the way, trademark.
Can you say it again? I'm going to quote it.
Yes. As long as people think that life is easy, life is difficult. But when people understand that life is difficult, life this is the Kohelet. This is, if you will, the outlook of Shlomo HaMelech to the second pasuk and on. Good?
I love this quote.
Rabbi, you should put that quote on your Instagram.
On my Instagram?
Yeah.
I should. I'll put it. It's too long, no?
No, it's perfect.
Like put it like a nice a meme, like with a background, something visual.
Yeah, well, so why don't you design it and send it to me? I'll post it.
I'm the worst designer, but I'll try my best.
I'm going to do it now. Or I'll have Florence Shearer do it. She's the best.
Yeah, Florence is good. We'll get Florence on it.
Et livkot, there are time of cry. Ve'et yischok, and there are time of happiness, of joy. Et sefo, there are time where you mourn. Ve'et rekod, and time where you dance. All those outlooks, all these are now coming to tell us if you want to laugh, you have to be ready to cry. If you want to dance, you have to be ready to mourn. Again, let's not forget the contrast that we addressed that is so important.
Lightness and darkness.
And versus the light. Darkness was created first, not because of darkness, but just so that we can appreciate the light. If you want the moment of happiness to be a moment and not just, a lot of us, and I'm the first one, you go to situations, you go to events, and you're not even there. And everybody's dancing, and everybody's drinking, and everybody's having, but you're not there. And yes, ha 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 ha, and you dance. But emotion, it's not a moment. It's just an event in this linear vector of time.
This is mine.
Exactly. Exactly like also moments of difficult moments, it's pain, but you're not interactive, you're not infused, you're not in tune, you're not in osmosis with the time. So if we want to benefit time, and we want to benefit from the time, and we want those moments to be real moments, we have to be able to understand each and every moment in order to bond with it, in order to benefit from it when the moment is the right moment and the good moment.
Keep going.
So when we talk about Et livkot, when we talk about bechi, bechi means crying, but bechi also means navoch. Navoch, nevuchim hem ba'aretz, agar alehem hamidbar. The Torah says, navoch, they're confused, they're lost. When you're lost, you cry. When you cry, you're lost. Okay? Schok, you're talkative, you want to discuss, you want to share. So here, the comparison between the two is, if you're lost, if you don't have a direction, you're going to end up crying. To understand how impactful and destructive a lack of direction is in someone's life. It brings pain. It brings cry, tears, sadness when you don't have a direction. Et livkot. The et is hog, but when you engage, when you speak, when you learn, when you share information, you build, you carve a direction, you carve yourself a guideline, you carve yourself a path. It brings to schok, it brings to happiness, to laugh, it brings to good moments, to productivity, to positivity. This is the underlying message from the Et Livkot ve'et Lishok. I think we're gonna end it here because it's a very powerful message for us to internalize and understand and really absorb. The root of the tear versus the root of the joy. These are outcomes.
Can we maybe next time dive into a little bit, how do you actually internalize that other side in order to, appreciate and enjoy the beginning?
Yes.
Let's shelf that.
We will. We have another 4 pesukim of 18. Okay.
Okay.
And then we're going to jump into that. We're going to finish in the beginning there next shiur the 18, and then we'll dive into the contrast, the practical work of the contrast in order to be able to benefit from it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I actually touched in that that subject in yesterday's shiur.
Beautiful.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
Be'atzlacha.
Have a great day.
Have a beautiful day.